Good morning. Welcome to Bible study. So far this summer, we have been reading stories from the Old Testament, the first part of our Bible. Today and for the rest of the summer, we're going to be reading stories from the New Testament. Before we talk about the New Testament and what it's about and where we can find it in our Bibles, let's take a minute and remember together all that we've learned about the Old Testament. To help find books in the Bible, we've learned a few things. First, we've learned the names of the first 10 books of the Bible. This means if we're looking for a story that is in one of those books, we can just say them and remember and then flip through the pages until we find it. Let's say the names of those 10 books together. Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy, Joshua, Judges, Ruth, 1 Samuel, and 2 Samuel. Now, do you remember the name of the book that you can find if you open your Bible right to the middle? It's the book of Psalms. Psalms are songs and prayers and poems that were used in the worship of God. The last books in the Old Testament are books of prophets, and there are a lot of them. Prophets were men and women who brought a message from God. Sometimes this message was good news about good things or blessings that were to come to God's people. Sometimes it was warnings or bad news. You have done wrong. I need you to do better. Punishment is coming. The prophets, a lot of times when we're looking for them, some of them are very short. Jonah, that we read last week, was only 2 pages. That can be hard to find in all of these pages. So we've learned always, if we're trying to look up something in the Bible, that we can open up and we can use our table of contents to find the books of the Bible. In the table of contents, you can find the Old Testament, the first part of the Bible, and you can see that that is a longer section and more books. And then you can find the New Testament, the second part of our Bible. If you have your Bible, you can look at the table of contents with me and say with me the first 4 books of the New Testament. These are the ones I want us to think about today. Let's say their names together. Matthew, Mark, Luke, John. Let's say them one more time. Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. These are the first 4 books of the New Testament. These 4 books are called the Gospels. And Gospels mean good news. Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John are called the Gospels because they tell the good news about Jesus. In these 4 books, we can read about when Jesus was born. We can read about Jesus's life. We can read about things Jesus said, things Jesus did, and people Jesus spent time with. And that is what we're going to do today. We are going to read a story about Jesus spending time with his friends. 2 of his close friends were Mary and Martha, and they were sisters. In our story today, Jesus will be at their house. When I read the story, and today's story comes from the book of Luke, Matthew, Mark, Luke, the 3rd gospel. When I read the story today, there's something I want you to do. When you hear me say Martha, I want you to stand up out of your chair. And when you hear me say Mary, I want you to sit back down. Martha, stand up. Mary, sit down. As you do this, you'll learn, and as you hear the story, you'll learn why we stand up when we say Martha and why we sit down about Mary. It will also help you learn important things and remember important things about who they were and what they did. So join me as we read this story from Luke 10. Sometimes it's easy to know the right thing to do, and sometimes it is hard. Sometimes the choice is between two good things, and it is hard to know which one is better. This is a story about a choice that Jesus' friends Martha and Mary had to make. One day, Jesus, along with the disciples, went to the home of his very good friends, the sisters Martha and Mary, and their brother Lazarus. Martha showed Jesus how much she loved him by cooking a wonderful meal for him. She knew Jesus stayed busy by taking care of other people, so she liked to take care of him. Mary showed Jesus how much she loved him by sitting down beside him and listening to him talk about God's love. She could not get enough of his stories. Two sisters with two different ways of showing Jesus their love. Martha by being up and serving and preparing a meal. Mary by sitting down and listening. Is one way better than the other? Let's listen to what happened. Martha grumbled, "Where is my sister Mary? Does she think I have 6 hands?" Martha thought, "I can't knead the bread and prepare the fish at the same time." The longer Martha worked alone, trying to get everything done by herself, the angrier she became at Mary. Ready to explode, Martha marched up to Jesus and said, "Lord, don't you care that I have to do all the work alone? Make my sister Mary help me." Maybe Jesus wasn't as hungry as Martha thought. Or maybe Jesus knew that Mary needed to hear about God's love more than she needed to cook. Jesus said, "Martha, Martha, you are worried and upset about many things, but one thing is most important. Mary has chosen what is better, and I will not take it away from her." As we've read this story, let's imagine what it was like to be each of these sisters. Imagine being Martha and working hard to prepare for your guest. Imagine what it felt like to not have any help. Imagine what it was like for Mary, who sat and listened at Jesus' feet. I wonder how Mary felt when Jesus said, "Mary has chosen what is best." I wonder how Martha felt when she heard Jesus say these words. And I wonder what Martha did. Did she stay busy? Did she continue preparing a meal? Or did she stop and sit at Jesus' feet? And if she did, Did their supper get burnt? I wonder what happened after Jesus said, "Mary, you have chosen what is right." I wonder when we learn from Jesus, what are times and places and ways that you learn from Jesus? Jesus doesn't come to our house and visit us the same way that he did with Mary and Martha. But I believe there are still many ways we can listen to and learn from Jesus. I wonder how you do that. As we go into this week, let's all find time to listen to and learn from Jesus. Maybe we can read in our Bibles each day. Maybe we can spend 5 minutes or more each day sitting in quiet. Maybe we can pray to God and talk to God and listen to God. Maybe there are other ways you can think of as well. But look for ways you can listen to and learn from Jesus. Thanks for joining us for Bible study. I'll see you again next week.